Yat shik edo shidene she zanaba arita marinisha sana betlinishle nakai bashichin toba the shinale adosh adine de shiche toslagai dan nasha nadina kishnachai akut ego anstane nishle. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Zanaba Martin. My Navajo clans are Sleeping Rock, born from Mexican, Mayan, and Aztec ancestry. My paternal grandfather is of the Edgewater clan, and my late maternal grandfather is of the Modoc tribe. I am from Toslagai, which is located on the New Mexico side of the Navajo reservation. I identify as an Indigenous woman. My major is Southwest Studies with an emphasis in film studies, and my minor is Indigenous Studies. I would like to welcome everyone here today and congratulate our graduating class of 2019. Let me begin with acknowledging the Indigenous land here at the Colorado College. I want to thank and pay respect to the Ute people and all the Indigenous peoples whose ancestral homelands we are on. As members and guests of our community, I ask you to join me in honoring the ancestors of our various peoples, nations, tribes, and families whose struggles for justice on this land inspire us. I also ask that you honor our Mother Earth as she continues to nourish and sustain us and all life on our planet. Please join me for the invocation. Kudoho Jodolel, Creator, I ask that you continue to bless everyone that is here today. Thank you for bringing everyone here safely, and I ask that you continue to protect us on our journeys home. I ask that you give our graduating class strength, courage, and blessings as we prepare for life beyond Colorado College. We thank our families, relatives, friends, mentors, professors, advisors, community members, and everyone who has supported us in our class. We honor those that have gone before us, those that are with us now, and those that are yet to come. I pray that we all walk in beauty. Shitsijin hojodo, shikeren hojodo, shiyage hojodo, shikade hojodo, shinao hojodolel, hojonahaslin, 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 hojonahaslin. Ahiyaha and thank you. And now I would like to call up Luishi.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. President Tiefenthaler, Provost Townsend, Dean Wong, Dean Edmonds, Dean Mason, Board of Trustees, faculties, staff, families, and friends. And of course, my fellow class of 2019. Yeah, we made it! We made it. I think we all did. It wasn't easy. My name is Louis Shi. I double major in economics and race, ethnicities, and migration studies at Colorado College. Today, it is with great honor that I welcome you to the 2019 Colorado College Baccalaureate. At this moment, I would like to recognize Mr. Philip Owie, who would have been graduating this year, but sadly passed away in December 2017. Philip made many positive impacts on this campus and would have been a proud graduate of the class of 2019. Our thoughts are with him and his family today. Looking around this chapel, I see a lot of success, pride, fear, and a lot of hungover. I want to congratulate my class of 2019 on finishing this liberating and transformative journey at Colorado College. The diploma, which we'll receive tomorrow, is a validation of our patience, hard work, and ethics. It is a great privilege to receive the Colorado College education, and experience what this unique place has to offer. But our voyage to this destination inevitably comes with great responsibilities. We must be held accountable for this privileged educational experience and the opportunities it will bring. We must serve as agents who apply knowledge and ideas to bring tangible actions for self-examination, improvement, and change. Our times at Carter College have gifted us more than just a mere will to use a Black Lives Matter hashtag, but to have the strength and courage to physically and politically stop a white police officer from abusing black and brown bodies. The knowledge and the skills we accumulated at Carter College will guide us to our dream careers and a life of comfort. But comfort leads to complacency. Let's not forget, genocide happened right here before we defeated Nazi Germany. And Trayvon still died even after the Confederates surrendered. So did Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old gunned down by the Cleveland police officer for playing with a toy gun. Eric Garner, a father of 6, choked to death by the NYPD for selling loose cigarettes and breaking up a fight. Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Michael Brown. The list goes on and on. If the society had decided to treat every single one of us the same way they treated this list of people, most of the class of 2019 won't be able to make it to graduation. Most of us are not special. We're just born lucky. What makes us special is not to receive the diploma tomorrow, but what we'll accomplish with that diploma and what we will build for others. To leave a legacy is to move beyond our selfish needs and wants of comfort and ask, as Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. once iterated, life's most persistent and urgent question: what are you doing for others? We should not forget that Dr. King also said, where I quote, "Whites, it must frankly be said, are not putting a similar mass effort to re-educate themselves out of their racial ignorance. It is an aspect of their sense of superiority that the white people of America believe they have so little to learn," end quote. Fundamentally, this diploma is a trust invested in us by our parents and loved ones so we can have a better life, or simply have the mobility to be whom we wish to be. It is also a trust from the society to challenge the status quo, to alleviate the consequences of crimes for which this country was built upon. It is time to hold ourselves accountable for this privilege and knowledge bestowed upon us. It is time for us to represent Colorado College as a catalyst for social progress. My plea is for us to stand as a force of a betterment and not only fight for our right, but what is right. Now, since I have addressed my beloved white brothers and sisters, I also have a message for my fellow graduates and students of color. In the words of Nipsey Hussle, the game is gonna test you. Never fold. Stay 10 toes down. It is not on you, it is in you. What is in you, they can't take away. Again, congratulations to the class of 2019 for this incredible accomplishment. Thank you all for being here. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Miss Annie Bronfman.
Thank you. Today, I will be reading a poem by the poet Naomi Shihab Nye, entitled Famous. The river is famous to the fish. The loud voice is famous to silence, which knew it would inherit the earth before anybody said so. The cat sleeping on the fence is famous to the birds watching him from the birdhouse. The tear is famous briefly to the cheek. The idea you carry close to your bosom is famous to your bosom. The boot is famous to the earth, more famous than the dress shoe, which is famous only to floors. The bent photograph is famous to the one who carries it, and not at all famous to the one who is pictured. I want to be famous to shuffling men who smile while crossing streets, to sticky children in grocery lines, famous as the one who smiled back. I want to be famous in the way that a pulley is famous, or a buttonhole, not because it did anything spectacular, but because it never forgot what it could do. Thank you. Now I have the pleasure to bring up a gifted poet and wonderful friend, SETHWILSON Isaac Gray.
Now I can see you all. It is a great honor to introduce this year's baccalaureate speaker. Professor Jane HILBERRY graduated Phi Beta Kappa from Oberlin College with a bachelor's degree in English, then continued her education at Indiana University, where she earned a master's degrees in literature and creative writing, as well as a PhD in medieval and Renaissance literature. She joined the Colorado College faculty in 1988. Today, she is the Nancy Bryson and C. William Schlosser Professor in the Arts, Professor of English, and Professor of Creativity and Innovation. In addition to teaching at Colorado College, she served for a decade as a faculty member in the Art of the Executive Leader program at Canada's Banff Centre. She has published 3 books of poetry, including Still the Animals Enter, Body Painting, which won the Colorado Book Award for Poetry, and This Awkward Art, which was co-authored by her father, Conrad HILBERRY. In 2018, Professor HILBERRY won the Cantor Award from Telluride Literary Arts for the best poem for a Colorado poet, and she has been published in a multitude of journals and anthologies. She's been featured in art exhibitions, collaborated and performed with dozens of different people, read her work all over the country, and led varieties of workshops. Honestly, I don't even know how she does it all. From Professor HILBERRY's numerous accomplishments, I think we can all see that she is committed to the adventure that is living as a human being. Her passion for the arts is one of mythic proportions, as is her dedication to her students. She's a professor who shows up to change lives, to foster independent thinking, and above all, inspire students to believe they are capable of absolutely anything. My voice alone could not possibly capture the impact she has had on the students, so here's something a recent student of hers had to say. Maya Day, class of 2020, says, quote, "To her, poetry is the creative process, and through her teaching, I've learned to loosen the grip of my mind reins and enjoy works in progress. She makes writing free and full of joy," end quote. Now to me, Professor HILBERRY helped make my education at CC one of joy. She has been my advisor since I arrived here, turned professor, turned mentor, and next year I'll be working with her as a paraprofessional. Without her constant support, I would not be standing here today. She has showed me what it means to open myself to others through various arts, to let in my obsessions, treasure minutiae, and greet what is in front of me. The original reason I came to CC was to pursue some kind of degree in poetry, which I will be receiving tomorrow, and I remember thinking, how amazing is it that I get a real poet to lead me through that journey? But one of my favorite things about Professor HILBERRY is that she acknowledges it is often as important to let the universe lead us, or for us to let us lead ourselves. Professor HILBERRY has this huge basket overfilling with collaged cards in her home. These cards vary in size and color, and on each there are images and words, some that make sense and others that make absolutely none. She encourages people to ask the basket a question, draw a card, and see where the response takes them. College is no doubt a place that will move you, that will change you, and it can be terrifying because what if the world brings you to a situation you're unsure how to solve? Professor Hilberry inspires me to not live in fear that I will fail, but to live knowing I will fail. Failure is impossible to avoid, so I must embrace and create from it to succeed. Only then will I become my best self. And I'd like to end this introduction with the words of Ross Gay, a poet that Professor Hilberry taught in my last class with her. I didn't truly understand these words until she came into my life. I've always been stuck on that age-old question that I'm sure some of my classmates have too. Where does meaning come from? I wanted to understand everything around me, maybe a presentation to tell me why I'm here, why any of us are here. Professor Hilberry instead taught me how to accept obscurity in the world and instead enjoy questions. From his poem Spoon, Ross Gay writes, quote, "I wish one single thing made sense, to which I say, oh, get over yourself. That's not the point." End quote. Please join me in welcoming Professor Jane Hilberry.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Friends and family members of the class of 2019, distinguished colleagues, Dean Wong and Provost Townsend, President Tiefenthaler, members of the Board of Trustees, I'm deeply honored to be here to speak with you today. I'd like to begin by recognizing what each of you here has done to bring our group of seniors here to the point of graduating tomorrow, if you can believe that. And to the seniors, congratulations to all you have done to reach this momentous point where you bring your years at CC to a close and begin creating what comes next. I'm so happy we're all here together. We've had some erratic weather, right? But we're saving the good weather for tomorrow. Thank you, Seth, so much for that generous introduction. And I also want to thank all the students who are contributing to the baccalaureate service today. And I also want to express my special thanks to my senior poets. Working with you has been an inspiration and a lot of fun. Thank you. So I would like us to ask us today to spend some time thinking about creativity. And as a starting point, I want you all to take just a minute, each of you, to see if you can identify the last time you did something that you considered creative. The last time you did something creative. Just take a minute to think about it. That's good, thanks. Just keep that in mind as we start to think about what constitutes creativity. We often think of creativity as being the domain of artists, and it is, of course, in profoundly important ways. Artists have a very deep and exacting relationship to the creative process. But I want to ask you to think today about creativity more broadly, to think of it as an everyday phenomenon that touches every aspect of life. I did a little crowdsourcing for this talk. I got curious about the creativity of the senior class. I invited the seniors to tell me what they've created during their years at Colorado College. I gave them cards with the words "I created" at the top and asked them to complete the sentence. So here are just a few of the many wonderful responses that I got back. I created apple and pumpkin pie from scratch. I created a novel synthesis reaction using reactive benzenes. I created a space for more Indigenous and first-generation students. I created a lot of really great Spotify playlists while procrastinating. I created a small business. Other items on the list of what you seniors created include a love of insects, a more inclusive space at the climbing gym, the best cover band in rock and roll history, which I understand played at the dance, a thesis I'm proud of, some marches, belief in my own strength, a championship-winning esports program, a hell of a lot of trouble, a club for women in STEM, a strong habit of playing the show of piano right here late at night, and finally, the best friends I could have ever had. Some of the cards are placed around the chapel here, so as you're walking out, if you want to see some more of these wonderful responses, you can. I'm so impressed with the list, and I'm taken especially by the quality of joyfulness I feel in these answers, and for you seniors, for your sense of satisfaction with what you've made. In all of these cases, where something didn't exist before, one of you seniors saw a possibility and brought it into being. The college you are leaving is not the same college you entered 4 years ago, because in ways large and small, you have recreated it. It's clear that you have the power to move through the world creatively and to change the environments you inhabit. And even so, it can seem overwhelming to leave the space of a small college and move into something entirely different after graduation. I'm sure that you seniors know in a visceral way that you're in a big moment of transition. I believe that you're stepping into a powerfully creative moment, a time when all that creative energy you've already demonstrated can take on even larger dimensions. It is, in a structural sense, a creative moment. To suggest why this moment is structurally creative, I need to talk a little bit more about creativity and how it works. When I tell people that I teach creativity, they often ask, "Can you teach creativity?" I say, I don't have to. People are already creative. You're creative when you can't find the hammer, so you take off your shoe and pound in the nail with the heel. The other day I was at a gathering with Seth, who just introduced me, and he wanted to sew something, but he couldn't find a needle. So he used a nail and a paper clip, and it worked. That's creative. Being creative is essentially about seeing multiple ways to accomplish something. To do this requires the ability to generate possibilities. In fact, I believe that the very heart of creativity lies in being able to generate possibilities. This ability is crucial because if we can't generate new ways to do things, we're stuck with the status quo. As long as we can see possibilities, we are never stuck. So you might well ask, if everyone's already creative, what do I do when I teach creativity? It's true that we're all creative, we can all generate possibilities and go on to execute those novel ideas. But at times that creativity is hard to access. What I can do for students is to use what I know about creative process and how the imagination works to set up conditions in which creativity will thrive. Above all else, I need to establish a space in which students can set aside the pressure to perform so they can just enjoy exploring something they're curious about. Students need a space in which they can be kind to themselves and to each other and to their seedlings of ideas. That, for me, is the essential ingredient in fostering creativity. But there are also some specific tactics that I use to help students access their own creative natures. I want to talk today about one particular strategy, and this is a shortcut that you yourselves can use at moments when you need some new ideas. I want to suggest that you can see new possibilities by bringing two unlike things together. In the gap between those unlike things, your imagination will generate new ideas and insights. Unlike things, gap between them, insights and new ideas and possibilities. I discovered the power of this creative gap through writing poems. I grew up in a literary family. My father was a poet and my mother was an avid reader of fiction, and both of them cared a lot about words, and both of them were teachers. My decision to become a creative writing teacher was perhaps not the most creative thing I ever did. When I was 14, I began writing poems myself. One of the most thrilling parts of writing I found is the surprise that happens when you stumble upon a metaphor that leads you someplace unexpected. When I write, I don't know ahead of time what's going to happen. I don't know what a poem's going to be about. I just write, and I see what happens. So just to give one example, one time as I was writing, a poem emerged that was all about keeping the heart protected. It was all images of sort of containing and guarding the heart. Then, for some reason, the image arose in my mind of a red wagon, those radio flyer wagons we played with when we were little. Maybe some of you remember those. And incidentally, we lived on a street with a big hill. So I wrote, when she was a girl, she had a red wagon. Her heart's like that, something she can pull with a handle, but hard to steer if it gets going downhill. There's no inherent similarity between a human heart and a child's wagon. Here's a heart, here's a red wagon. But when you bring those two unlike things together, surprising insights can arise. In fact, it's the gap between the two things, the heart and the wagon, that gives rise to the fresh creative thought, a thought that surprised me and reflected a deeper truth about the subject, that once the heart gets some momentum, you're not going to stop it. When you bring unlike things together, it shocks you out of your customary way of seeing and invites novel possibilities. I recently watched a TED Talk by David Sturt that demonstrates how bringing unlike things together can also be useful in solving real-world problems. There was a medical group in London that had had several deaths at the moment when patients were transferred from the operating room to the hospital rooms where they were going to stay overnight. By chance, a doctor was watching a Formula One race, and he was taken by how quickly and accurately the pit crews worked during the races. In his mind, he brought these two unlike things together. He thought, why not see if the Formula One pit crews have something to teach us about our transfer process? He actually contacted a racing team in Italy, and when the pit crews watched a video of the hospital transfers, they said, this is chaos. They said, we're surprised you don't have more deaths. They helped the hospital workers refine their practices, and the mortality rates went way down. Sociologist Ronald Burt talks about this phenomenon of the creative gap in slightly different terms. He describes the gaps between social groups, for example, between doctors and Formula One racers, as structural holes. He says that the most creative people are actually not the ones who are most deeply embedded in the center of their disciplines. The people who, he puts it, and I love this phrase, he says, the people who are most susceptible to good ideas are those at the edges of their fields because they're more likely to connect with others across structural holes and to import and adapt their practices. That's the doctor who also happens to watch Formula One racing and who revolutionizes medical care because his mind is working to bridge structural holes. So, remember I said at the beginning of this talk that you seniors are at a structurally creative moment in your lives? You are at the edge of a big structural hole. You have your social ties within your CC communities, you have the disciplinary knowledge of your area of study, and now you're embarking on a time when you will inevitably encounter people in new contexts with backgrounds and forms of expertise different from your own. This is the greatest creative gap ever. This is a magnificent structural hole. When you bring your experience and expertise into the new communities you're moving into, both you and those communities will be susceptible to new perceptions and good new ideas. Both you and those communities will be transformed. One last note on the subject of the creative power of gaps. Research demonstrates that cities with significant diversity, cities that bring together people who are unlike in terms of ethnicity and sexual orientation, for example, have the most thriving creative cultures. The same could be said for countries. A colleague of mine reminded me that Baccalaureate is traditionally a time for spiritual reflection. I told him that for me, spirituality and creativity are connected. In fact, as I think about it, my belief in the power of creativity is a form of faith for me. I have faith that no matter how dark or uncertain things around us may seem, and I don't have to itemize the ways things seem dark and uncertain at this historical moment, that we still have the power to respond because we can see the possibility of a different world and we can generate strategies for how to create it. Maybe this time of collision between radically unlike views in our country is actually a call to radical creativity. I want to assure you, seniors, when you leave the chapel today, that as you face the big, intimidating gap between college and what comes next, you're stepping into an incredibly fertile and creative moment, and that you have already the imagination and the skills and the substance to navigate that gap and enter into the world of possibilities it affords. This isn't to say that it's easy. Moving into a creative space is scary. It requires a lot of nerve, because by definition, creating something new means stepping beyond what you know. Whether you have a job all lined up, or whether you don't know what you will do the moment after you graduate tomorrow, either way, you can't know what's next. You have to create it as you go. So embrace the chance to put yourself in proximity with difference. Work with people whose mindsets are different from yours. Collaborate with others in areas you know nothing about. In those gaps, your creativity will come to your aid. It will actually help to take care of you in this transition. Our commencement speaker, Oprah Winfrey, has repeatedly asked herself and invited others to ask of themselves, what do I know for sure? We live in a time of great uncertainty, and I don't claim to know much for sure. But I do know for sure that we are creating our way forward. I know for sure that what happens next in our lives, our community, our culture, and on our planet will happen because we create it. At this moment, I want to invite all of us, including the faculty and parents and friends and our seniors, to take a minute to ask ourselves, what will we create next? I don't just mean this rhetorically. I want to ask you literally to think about something you would like to create next. Maybe you too would like to make an apple pie from scratch. Maybe you want to organize a march or play piano in a chapel at night. Maybe you want to crochet a coat for a tree. I don't know what it will be, but some part of you does know. So in just a minute, the musicians will come on stage and offer you a beautiful rendition of Amazing Grace. But in this little creative gap of time, after I finish speaking and before they begin playing, while they're setting up their instruments, I want to invite you to pick up the card that was in your program that says at the top, what will we create next? You should all have them. If you don't, you can write on your program. And there are pens in front of you in the pews. You may have to share around a little bit. Give me 1 second here to finish giving you your assignment, and then you can go to work. So in just a second, what I want you to do is just to write down an idea, maybe a crazy idea, maybe a secret long-held aspiration or a forgotten hope. Write down something that you'd love to create next. Even if it seems impossible, just write it down. There are no tests at CC anymore for the senior class, so no one will check your work. If you choose to share your idea, you can do that after the service. If you don't want to share your idea, you can just tuck it into your robe or your jacket and keep it to yourself, at least for now. So take advantage of this gap between speech and music to write down something you'd love to create. And think of it. There are 1,000 of us here in this chapel. If all 1,000 of us went out and created something, even something small, think about how much we would change. And think about how much joy that would bring into the world. Have fun with your ideas, and thank you so much for sharing this space with me today.
was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Thank you.
I'm also one of the short people who had to use the stool. Hello, everyone. My name is Isabel Trujillo, but most people call me Isa. And as far as I know, my name means consecrated to God. To consecrate is a verb which, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, means to make or declare sacred. I was born into a Christian family, and growing up, I was no stranger to going to church. As a young adult, I've made the choice to revisit Christianity and capital G God. One weekend, my friend Lisbeth suggested that we visit a church about 10 minutes east of here called Iglesia Nueva Vida. As the name may suggest, the service is in Spanish, but the welcoming hugs transcend language. I've gone a few times now, and each time is just as pleasant as the last. And yet, I can't help but wonder if this community I've come to enjoy would still warmly celebrate and welcome my trans and non-binary friends, my homeless friends, or my addicted friends. I guess only time will tell what type of community I'm getting myself involved with. But the larger question I'm wondering here is, what does it mean to be a church? I'm realizing now that sometimes I fall into the trap of incorrectly conflating the words church and perfect. If you know me, you know I'm a total word nerd. In fact, my first email address ever was isa.bookworm@hotmail.com. I love learning and using new words to help me get my point across clearly and effectively. So when I was asked to deliver the benediction today, my first question was, what does benediction mean? For those who don't know, a benediction is a blessing of an occasion. My next question is then, what does it mean to be blessed? In an earlier draft of my remarks, I refused to bless this occasion. I refused not because I am dramatic, though someone in this room maybe would describe me that way, but because only a few blocks downtown, there are people without enough to eat. There are students here and across the country with mountains of debt. And at our southern border, there are children, babies, being detained in cages. I refuse to bless this occasion because I don't know how to reconcile the depth of suffering I see in my communities with the joy and pride I feel about finishing my degree. On the count of 3, use your outside voice, not your inside voice, and state the meaning of your name. And if you are a CC graduate, state your class year too. For example, I'll say, Consecrated to God, 2019. And if you don't know the meaning of your name, say, I don't know, because there's no shame in not knowing. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Consecrated to God, 2019. How beautiful. Thank you. Naming is not neutral. I am Isabel Trujillo, but most people call me Isa. My name is my lifeline, my connection to my family, my ancestors, and my future. My name carries the hopes and prayers of my enslaved ancestors who knew that I would be here today. My name memorializes the injustices of colonization and the fortitude of the mestiza woman. And tomorrow, we, the class of 2019, will be bestowed another name, college graduates. For many of us, our time as a student here is finished, but our work as cosmopolitan citizens of the world is not. What does Colorado College graduate mean? We have an education, we have passions, and we have talent. Our next task is to live up to our name. Thank you.